How do I have a discussion if, for instance, there are many people who have had abortions, right? Terminated pregnancies. Maybe not because they wanted to. Maybe a lot of things happen that force us to make certain mistakes. But I'll never forget in my 20s when I was going through therapy, I went to a church camp. It was a women's church camp. I was in my early 20s, and it was women of various ages. And every day there was a session that we had, and there were counselors also there. And I remember a counselor dealing with the shame that we carry from our past, or whatever we've done, whatever the situation is, the shame that we carry. And there a lot of women came up with regards to the issue of terminated pregnancies. And you could see the guilt that they carried, and the shame and the mourning, they had for their unborn children. How do we encourage somebody that there is hope at the end of that they don't have to carry that shame and that guilt for the rest of their lives? Because there are people who do, and they're women in marriages whose husbands don't know that that's something that they did when they were younger, for whatever reason. They felt that they couldn't carry the child to full term. What do we say to somebody like that?
First things first, I think I would start with support. There is so much that I can say to encourage somebody. Mm-hmm. There's so much that I can say to motivate, or trying to give somebody advice, or The first things first, I would say, is support. That's, for me, the first level of what I would want to call encouragement, is support. Because sometimes, you want to encourage somebody so much that you are trying to release a stone from a slingshot that has not been pulled back. Yeah. So sometimes for that stone to go as far as it needs to reach, you just need it needs to go back. It needs to be pulled back on the slingshot, and the slingshot needs a pivot.
Okay.
It needs a pivot, and if we can just start on being that pivot, being that support that holds this individual in place, so that the breakdown is not too dire, so that other thoughts that can be of self-harm or anything like that do not come into thought. Just to know that there is that support. I'm reminded of the story of Job. One thing that I love about Job's friends was that when they came, the Bible says that they spent 3 days with Job. None of them, as wise as they were, as rich as they were, came and just sat with him, said nothing, but just supported him. So sometimes that's what we just need, just that support. Somebody who's not going to come trying to just encourage you. You know how annoying it can be sometimes. Somebody just comes up to you, "Yay, man, let's go out, let's do this, but I'm not there yet."
Yeah.
And to them it's like, "Nah, man, you need to get out of this ditch. And for you to get out of this ditch, let's go out partying. Let's do this, let's do that." I remember when I was young, there was a job that I wanted at a particular time, and my father was so supportive, and I couldn't get to pass the next level of that interview,
Okay.
because I needed to cool down. I had high blood pressure at the
Okay.
time, and I needed to cool down my blood pressure, and that delayed my appointment. So I was given a 7-day treatment where I was supposed to just exercise and then go back and check how I'm doing. But then with all of that being there, my father just sat with me. I remember that day he just sat with me the whole afternoon.
So you encourage a posture of support.
Just support. Just being there for someone. Let them beat themselves up a little bit. Let them hold themselves, drag themselves up a little bit, but be there as a support.
Support. And sometimes somebody doesn't need to hear your opinions or what you have to say about the situation, but they just need you to be there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Being there means a lot.
It
you know?
does.
Like within my story, my dad was just there, and he knew he wasn't going to be there and take me to the next step. So all he did was that he became just that anchor, and he then found other people to release the slingshot. Now, that evening, he phoned my friends, and he was like, "Guys, come pick your dude up. Gave us some money, and he was like, you guys go enjoy yourselves." And that was the beginning of me realizing the importance of both roles. Encouragement can come, but support has to be there. There has to be that anchor. So just propelling it forward from that support, you don't have to be the same person who offers the support and the encouragement.
Yeah.
You can find somebody else who is better fit to play that other role. But like what Keith was saying, that there is that first realm that you need to deal with yourself. You analyze, you critically analyze the situation. You look at yourself, and then you look for that next individual whom you can actually then go and talk to, who can then bring you that support.
That support.
Yeah. So I would put it in baby steps.
Keith, how does one forgive themselves? Because as much as, people try to convince women that it's just a blob. It has no heartbeat yet. It has no limbs yet. At whatever stage of the pregnancy, it is this. But at the end of the day, what I saw at the end of the day at that camp was that no matter where these women were, whichever stage it was, they were grieving over a life they felt responsible that they took. And no one can argue with that. Deep down, somebody deals with the fact that no matter what people say, it's still alive. Especially as in the Christian faith, we believe that life happens at conception. So how does one take that step to forgive themselves and say, I forgive myself?
Guilt plays an incredible role in this. And we immediately, women in an abortive situation,
Yes.
they feel guilty. And one needs to encourage those individuals that no matter whether you feel guilty or not, it's going to be a process where you need to appreciate that you cannot turn the clock back.
Yeah.
We're going forward. And to relieve that guilt, one needs to get forgiveness. And fortunately in the Christian faith we can turn to God and ask for forgiveness. But those who do not follow a Christian faith, they have a slightly bigger challenge on their hands. But always forgive. Forgive yourself first. To say, I've made the wrong choices in life. But from here on, I'm going to live a life that is full, that is within rules, that is within boundaries. And I always encourage people to maybe dedicate that commitment to whatever you've done in your past. So if there's an abusive relationship and you've left that individual, we feel guilty that we've left that individual, but the life that you're living now, sort of dedicate it to that previous experience and say, through that I will heal.
I will heal.
I will heal.
And that's not always easy, to choose oneself.
No.
To choose one's happiness.
No.
To choose one's freedom.
Yeah, but we don't deny it at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
It's owed to you. It's there.
Yeah.
We make choices. Some are wrong, some are right. If they're wrong, we need to
Repent.
repent, get it sorted out.
Get it sorted out.
Not easy,
No.
but we need to encourage each other that we cannot turn the clock back. And what's happened in the past is in the past and must remain in the past.
It is.
What do we do about our now? What do I do about my situation now? How do I resolve my issues? And how do I move forward?
I hear you. One thing that is not mostly as well discussed is in the termination of pregnancy. This is the last subtopic that I'm going to touch on with regards to terminating a pregnancy, is the men who also lose a child.
Of course.
Oftentimes, yes, we focus on the lady because obviously it's her body and a decision is made and there's that physical loss as well. But the men who also lose the child, sometimes it seems like they're not also given the space to mourn. And it's always assumed that, it's a problem done, taken care of, I don't have to deal with that. But there are men who also mourn because it was a seed of you.
No, of course. Not
It was your seed.
One person, yeah.
How do we encourage those men to heal during the grieving process? Because sometimes I guess also for them, they feel like because it wasn't in my body, I didn't carry the child, maybe I don't have permission to also grieve.
Is that in terms of a miscarriage or an abortion?
Let's go for both.
Okay? Because when it comes to abortion, the men sometimes, not just sometimes,
Yes.
It takes two to tango.
Yes.
And so this is one aspect that we normally do not touch on as society when there has been an abortion. Number one, you get men that actually encourage the woman or threaten her to abort or encourage her to abort, and sometimes even though you don't encourage or threaten, sometimes it's in your disappearance that forces somebody to get to make that important decision on their own.
It's an overwhelming journey to go by yourself. Yeah.
And if you just decide I'm just going to disappear, I'm not going to be a part of this, or I just don't want to talk about it, it forces somebody to make a decision on their own. Now, those kind of men, number one, at some point, it will come back to their conscience. And when it does, one needs to make right. One needs to make right where wrong was done. An apology is the first stance to make.
To the lady.
To the lady.
Okay.
Either you made her make that decision, or you made that decision for her, or you just disappeared. Because
which is making that decision for her.
Because there's volumes in silence. You speak volumes in silence. So one needs to come back to that place of realizing that you contributed. And after that, you make that apology when you have come to that consciousness. You make that apology and say, listen, based upon what I was going through or who I was or whatever the case might be, I acknowledge that I either pushed you or left you to make this decision on your own. So it's not your fault alone. We both played a part. We both played the role. And then when it comes to miscarriage, you'll find out that In most cases, yes, like what you're saying, because the woman is the incubator. She is the carrier of the seed. More emphasis and emotions are held by her. And yet the men, what I've realized sometimes is that as men, we play the tough cookie kind of game.
Yeah. The supporter.
You are the supporter, but you are not grieving yourself. So you kind of shut down your own emotions. You shut down your own emotions and say, let's take care of what needs to be taken care of now. It's not about me, it's about her. You know what I mean? And at that moment, it might be because she's going through a lot of things in her body and all of that is happening. You have to be there to support. But at some point, you need to also come to a point where you say to yourself, I also need that time to heal, that time to grieve. And if talked about, and if there is a culture of communication and that vulnerability between you and your partner, then the roles, you'll see the roles changing. When you were the support, now it's your turn to grieve, she then becomes your support because she has healed, you know, physically. She might not have healed emotionally, but she will then understand how you feel and how you could have journeyed in this desert alone.
I hear you. Keith, where the boyfriend wanted to have the child and the woman decided she can't. She wants to terminate the pregnancy. How does he heal?
That's very, very difficult for him, isn't it? Because, you know, he seems to have lost control there. And so, you know, in those kinds of situations, once again, you know, therapy is the only route. But as we've discussed, sometimes therapy is difficult to get by. It's costly, for example, for most of the population. It is denied. And to go to a state institution and have it done there, my experience has not been very, very favourable. You know, the volumes are too high.
Yeah.
So that poor man has now got to deal with this situation that he had no control over. You know, but once again, for those men out there, one cannot turn back the clock, as I keep saying. One needs to accept that this is what's happened, and in future we make better choices. You know, that is all that's given to us.
Yeah.
Because more than that, we're just going to beat ourselves up for the rest of our lives, and it's not fair.
It's hindering our progression.
It's you're not going to progress.
Yeah.
No.
What are the benefits of abstinence? What are the benefits of coming to a place of consciousness, coming to a realization that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, and saying, you know what, I've been very frivolous with my sexuality, and it's gained me nothing but temporary pleasure. There are more risks to me being very unguarded, unruly with my body. It's not too late to decide that today's a new day. I'm going to be celibate. I'm going to take the step of abstinence. It's not an easy thing to do, because the body also gets used to certain pleasures. We will talk about the pleasures of sin within the Christian belief. Why is abstinence important? How does it benefit me physically, spiritually, in my soul, in my mind?
Well, let's start first of all with the physical part of it.
Sure, let's.
Because the physical part of things, I remember back in the days, I don't know how now I'm setting out my age here, yeah? But I remember back in the days there was, when the HIV started to go rampant, and, you know, especially in Africa.
Yes.
There was an attempt to try and fight and control and find a way to, you know, harness this situation. And I remember there was a campaign that was put out, and I think it was what they called it, what, ABC.
Okay.
And the first was abstain.
Oh,
Yeah?
abstinence. Yes.
Abstinence.
Yes.
Abstain. And the next step was what? Be faithful to one partner.
Sure.
And then the
Monogamy.
last step, and then the last step was, I think, condomize.
Yes.
Now, looking at it, this really was not, because this campaign was brought about by a condom manufacturing company.
Yes.
I mean, it's like it's like putting yourself last, you know, and yet you want to sell your product,
Yes.
but you're putting yourself last. It's like selling cigarettes,
Yes.
right? You're selling tobacco, you're selling cigarettes, but you are on the box. You have to write that this thing will kill you, man.
Sure.
You know, don't do it. You know, this is dangerous to your heart. This is dangerous to your lungs.
It's like an oxymoron.
Yeah, but buy it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with that. That's what I found interesting. That even though they knew we need to push our product,
Yeah.
but there are two more things that are far more important than getting to sell our product. And that the first of it was abstinence. And physically, abstinence does have a lot of benefits. You know, you become, let me put it this way, stronger in your own space, in knowing how to harness your own body, your own emotions, your own hormones.
Yeah. Your own sexual desires.
Your own sexual desires,
Yeah.
you harness them, and you learn one thing that is very, very important, whether it's spiritually or psychologically or physically. One thing that is very, very important is discipline. You learn to be disciplined.
Yeah.
You learn to discipline your mind. You learn to discipline or to pummel your body. You learn to discipline yourself spiritually.
Yeah.
And when that happens, abstinence opens up some levels of spiritual intuition. You get to a realm where you start to see things clearly. And this is the reason why. This is the reason why the devil could not get to the spirit of Jesus for him to turn against his father's will and go for his own will. He couldn't penetrate to that. Why? Because Jesus was disciplined. He was disciplined for the 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness doing his fast. He was disciplined even when it came to the worst of points where he knew, the devil knew, your body, man, needs some food. Turn these rocks into bread. And he was disciplined not to.
Yeah.
He was disciplined not to take the fame and the glam and the people to bow down and worship him because he didn't jump from the highest pinnacle right down and not get hurt and etc. He was disciplined. Spiritually, the devil could not get to him. And Jesus, that's where his mission completely became so clear to him. It became so clear to him that he could not let go of that. So abstinence does bring you to that place where things become clear.
Direction.
You get clarity on your vision, on your life, on
Purpose.
your destiny, on your purpose, what you need to do, what you need to stick to. And because of that, you are abstaining, and it builds that discipline. There are two things when it comes to discipline. There are two definitions that I would like to angle those on.
Go for it.
Now, the first one is with discipline. Discipline comes as a path. For an example, Keith is in psychology, is doing his master's, but then one can ask, in which discipline? You know, you can be a particular lawyer or an attorney, but then one can then ask, in which discipline?
Fair enough.
Which means which area are you channeled in? You know, so abstinence gives you an area to channel in. And also discipline comes in as an act of self-control.
Which is important. You know, I like what Proverbs says. It says, you know, a person without self-control is like a city that can easily be invaded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How is it easily invaded? Because it's not guarded.
No.
It's not well trained. It's not well protected.
Yes.
To guard against other things just to come. Psychologically, if you abstain and keep to it, you are disciplined in abstinence. Psychologically, your mind will learn to shut down certain thoughts.
Yeah.
To diet and throw out negative thoughts that your body and your mind also knows. Your spirit knows that this is the gate, this is the door that you are opening up right now.
Yeah.
And it takes discipline.
It does take discipline.
And brings a certain clarity as well,
Yeah.
you know, where in that moment where you're not partaking in any sexual act with whatever individual.
Sure.
And we all agree that, you know, the art of sex is a very, very pleasurable thing.
Yes.
But very often, especially for women, I feel, maybe I'm just speaking from a man, women must also press the pause button
I agree.
during those periods of abstinence and look at themselves and their relationship and say, why am I doing this with this particular individual?
Yep.
How many times have I said no, but it had to happen? You know, so the clarity and the, you know, the fresh air
Yes.
that abstinence brings, and as Janash said, you know, that where you find this inward strength,
Yes.
you know, that can be an incredibly empowering
It can be.
feature
Yeah.
of any individual,
Yeah.
and it brings control, you know,
It does.
where you've analysed the situation a little bit clearer and said to yourself, you know what, do I really need to be doing it that often? You know, because it loses its beauty.
It does.
Anything that we do over and over and over and over and over in the same way loses the beauty. You know, and for me, being the romantic, it's always about the love. You know?
So it's about the love.
Just, you know, let's concentrate.
Share the love.
I'm giving my age away.
It's okay to be a
Like a hippie
romantic.
thing that's going on here
It's
now.
okay. And also, to be honest, the abstaining from sexual activity, especially I think in a situation where there hasn't been a commitment with regards to it pertaining a covenant, it can help us see things that we're avoiding in the relationship itself, the things that shouldn't be taking place in the relationship itself. It's funny how sex can make you oblivious to abuse. Sex can make you oblivious to red flags in relationships, and pressing the pause button and saying, let's just stay away from this for a while and see if there is something beneath the activity that we get so consumed with. We can actually realize that there are things that are very concerning in the relationship, and perhaps we shouldn't even be there in the first place. And that's what I would encourage women especially to do.
Yeah, it's a digestive process, you know.
Very much.
All the baggage that's in the machine, and you separate the socks from the underwear, from the shirts, from the trousers,
Yeah,
and see everything for what it is.
for
you know.
what it is.
And is it worth it? If the sock's got a hole in it, throw it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here's my question though now, you know. I mean, abstinence is a beautiful thing.
God, do I know it.
As much as sex is a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
you know. And within a relationship, let's take for an example, there's a relationship, a healthy relationship, everything has been going on well, sex has been a part of that relationship, etc.
In covenant or outside covenant?
Well, let's go right into society,
Okay.
because it's happening both in and out.
Okay.
Okay. And then there comes, well, let me pause a little bit. let me backtrack a little bit because now when it comes to in covenant,
Okay.
I mean, if you are married and you're in covenant, then that's a whole different ball game. Now, even the Bible addresses that that if a woman wants to take some time off this, and you must also discuss it and have that conversation and give her the time where she wants to be a little the same with the husband. But even outside covenant, all right, bringing it to that, when one has realized that I want to abstain, I want to probably be celibate, right, until the day of marriage.
Yes.
How can one break it down? Because your revelation of abstinence in a relationship might not be the same revelation
As somebody else's.
Now, how difficult, or how can one have that conversation to either show the other that same revelation, or have that discussion to say, listen, this is the path we are now going to go. But you have that revelation. I don't. Doesn't that then cause more problems? Because I still need to enjoy the beauty of the other. You want to enjoy the beauty of one.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, puts us at a very tricky place, because we have come to the end of the program, and I really thought we were going to bring this to a close. You know what? Let's talk about abstinence next week, and then really shut it down, because we're never going to finish, and I think that's an important conversation to have. So let's dedicate the next week to abstinence, and then we leave it there.
Fantastic.
Yeah?
All right.
It's Kaleidoscope Narrative. I'm your host, Miss J. It's been lovely having you around. I hope we've brought encouragement and enlightenment in certain areas of your life. We are on Google Podcasts, Anchor, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. From me and the rest of the team, ciao, everybody. Bye. Do listen to the podcast on the following platforms. We are on SME Fusion. We are on Google Podcast. We are on Anchor, iTunes, and Breaker. Do follow us on the following platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We will see you soon. Ciao.